this study. Look what I've got today. Redwall books. My sons, when they were young, and I loved to read the Redwall stories. And these were written by Brian Jacques. Some of them were even sent to one of my sons with his signature for my son's birthday, because he was a great fan of Brian Jacques' Redwall stories and wrote a letter to the author. So we have several books. I don't know if I've got another one here, not these ones. Several books with his autograph, and he would also send little maps from time to time. So he was a very personable, lovely author, lovely man. And he wrote these stories about these animals centered on Redwall Abbey. They would have these adventures. Now, there were always animals in trouble that needed help. There were plots, there were mysteries, there were long plots that overarched several books. There were heroes and legends, and it was a very rich story with many books. And these animals had their base in the Abbey of Redwall, which we drew a map of here in the study. Sort of a fanciful map. There's the front gate. The gatehouse has a lodge and its own library. The Great Hall is there. Some people have actually drawn plans of the Abbey in a different situation, actually to look like a real abbey with the nave and the cross-section. Here we had the dormitory and infirmary, and the place where the Dibbuns would sleep. Beautiful library there. The kitchen gardens. And the Great Hall, of course, was also where the creatures would have their feasts. There was an orchard and a bell tower, gardens, and the Abbey pond, and all the gates. As it's autumn, we're going to imagine all of the creatures going into the Great Hall from the Abbey and the surrounding forest and countryside for an autumn feast. As we listen to some of the songs of Redwall for autumn, first, a little bit about the author, Brian Jacques. Brian Jacques was born in Liverpool on the 15th of June, 1939. And he grew up near the Liverpool docks, attending St. John's Roman Catholic School. He wrote about his favourite teacher, Mr. Austin Thomas, whom he really liked. Thomas had been a captain in the Second World War and used to ride a big push bike carrying a haversack on his back. Thomas introduced Brian Jacques' class to poetry and Greek literature, and Jacques wrote that it was because of him I saved 7 shillings and 6pence to buy the Iliad and the Odyssey at this dusty used bookshop. But Brian's interest in literature and poetry was only starting to blossom. Some of his favorite authors were Defoe, Arthur Conan Doyle, Mallory, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Kenneth Grahame. So already you can see his background was geared towards being a great author of the Redwall adventures. He finished school at 15 and then worked as a railway fireman, a longshoreman, a long-distance truck driver, bus driver, postmaster, and a stand-up entertainer. He began his writing career, though, as a playwright. He won a long-term residency at the renowned Everyman Theatre, where his first play was to be performed. This was also where he met Alan Dibbun, one of the theatre's co-founders, and someone who had taught English at the Liverpool Institute. Brian began the Redwall series by writing Redwall for the children at the Royal Wavertree School for the Blind in Liverpool, where he had been a truck driver at the time, delivering milk. In appreciation of his first audience, he made his style of writing descriptive and used lots of dialect and entertaining ways of speech. He would call it painting pictures with words, engaging the blind school children with his wonderful adventures in their imaginations. He was to become a very long-term friend and supporter of this school, and later served as a board member, raising funds through many charitable events. As his writing gained acclaim, his friend Alan Dibbun read the first Redwall book. He was so impressed by it that he showed it to his own publisher in London, saying that it was the finest children's tale he'd ever read, and that his publisher would be foolish not to print it. This led to a contract for the first 5 books in the Redwall series, and a dedication to Alan in the first of several Redwall books. Brian was a very beloved figure in Liverpool and remained so all his life. He ran a weekly radio show on BBC Radio Merseyside until October 2006, sharing his love for music and playing his personal mix of folk, classical, and operatic arias. He also had a dog named Teddy, a West Highland White Terrier. He castles, as well as continuing reading his extensive library, including P.G. Wodehouse. He passed away on the 5th of February 2011, mourned by the entire world of Redwall fans. We'll start reading with a description of Redwall Abbey from the very first book called Redwall. Redwall stood foursquare along the marches of the old south border, flanked on two sides by moss-flower woods' shaded depths. The outer half of the abbey overlooked undulating sweeps of meadowland, its ancient gate facing the long, dusty road on the western perimeter. From above, it resembled some fabulous dusky jewel, fallen between a green mantle of light silk and dark velvet. The first mice had built the abbey of red sandstone, quarried from the pits many miles away in the northeast. The abbey building was covered across its south face by that type of ivy known as Virginia creeper. The onset of autumn would turn the leaves into a cape of fiery hue, thus adding further glory to the name and legend of Redwall Abbey. As the autumn gets on, we shall read a poem from the Bellmaker. And there's the map. This one written by Father Abbot Saxtus. Autumn comes, the summer's flown, traveller's journey ends, harvest is in, the table laid. Sit you down midst friends. And next from the legend of Luke. Round the seasons slowly turning, faithful as the stars and moon, summer fades, the earth is yearning, softly whispering, autumn soon. Drape the woods in mist one morning. Now small birds have learned to fly. Mother Nature's gentle warning. See green leaves turn brown and die. In old orchards on the bough, fruit hangs russet, red and gold. Purple scarlet berries now, all the rambling hedgerows hold. Hazel, beech, and chestnut too, each displays its burden fair. They will shed them all for you, ere winter lays their branches bare. see signs like these. Summer's long hot days are ended, harvest moons o'er stream and mere tell the tale as 'twas intended. Autumn's peaceful dream is here. And this last one from The Pearls of Lutra. That happens midway through the adventure, when the animals are gathered. A vision to Abbot Durrell, high o'er the hills, far o'er the seas, fly with the small birds, follow the breeze, go with your heart where you would roam, back to the rose-colored stones you call home, where faded summers will echo again, brown autumn trees, or the spring's gentle rain. Shadows are falling across woodlands you know. Rest, weary one, in the warm firelight glow. So I've compiled an autumn Redwall video for you, so you have an extra long autumn Redwall treat with feasts and food and lots of animals, poems and adventures. So get comfortable and enjoy autumn in Redwall Abbey. Because today I've made a wonderful Brian Jacques Redwall autumn feast for us using the Redwall cookbook. So I'll be reading a little bit of Brian Jacques' Redwall anecdotes from the cookbook, and we'll be having some of the treats I've made for us. The first day of autumn is said to be when the angle of the sun on the earth in its orbit means that the dew on the grass stays on through the morning and doesn't burn off by mid-morning. This happens at different times depending on where you live. But here in the British Isles, which is a climate that seems very similar to that in the Redwall stories, this happens late August to late September. So we can say that autumn is now beginning, and it was always a time for the Redwall creatures to have feasts from their harvest to come together to enjoy each other's company in the Great Hall at Redwall. So here I have a little felt badger. He has a little knit jumper and a little felt rucksack, and he's been out gathering nuts and goodies for the autumn feast. He's probably from Salamanderstron. I also have some honey. Honey dipper. And some walnuts, hazelnuts, and I've added some sugared stem ginger for some spice. So I've used mostly ingredients that I think the Redwall creatures would have had available to them as I went through these recipes and modified them slightly. So to start with, let's have some October ale. This one, we're just going to have straight Ventman's ginger beer. Pardon the creaky floorboards of this old house. And here is our loam hedge nut bread. You can see it has all kinds of nuts. I put dates and some berries, hazelnuts, but I also used some pistachios and almonds, and of course I think the dates and Brazil nuts that these creatures might not have been able to find unless they traded with some places farther to the south. So for our first course here, let's put some honey on our loam hedge nut bread. noisy neighbors. With their power tools and hammers. We're going to relax with Redwall and pretend that they are not there. Here we have a mouse, possibly an abbot, looking from one of the towers in towards Redwall and beyond into the mossflower woods. And there you can see some trees in their autumn colors, some migrating birds in the golden sky, possibly an animal. And there's the river. And there's smoke coming from maybe the kitchens, maybe the great hall. I saw the day dawn silent grey, as sunrise mist turned gold. Dame Autumn glided calmly in, through summertime grown old, whilst apples ripe on orchard boughs dropped to the wearied grass, and dead leaves rustled to and fro to let small breezes pass. We harvested the oats and rye, our barley and good wheat, leaving birds ere they flew south to glean all they could eat. At harvest time, in autumn tide, dewy tears drip from the eaves, sad legacy of summer days, are crimson, amber, russet leaves. So as the days begin to grow shorter, and all of the trees color in their evening splendor, we'll have a Redwall feast. Matimeo, son of Matthias and Cornflower, gathered his warm cloak about him and scanned the twilit orchard. Trees and bushes stood bare and forlorn, their fruits harvested by Redwallers, their dead leaves swept to the ground by autumnal breezes. The young mouse peered into the gathering gloom, his paws swishing through the leafy carpet as he paced to and fro. Matimeo took his duties seriously. The father abbot had asked him to bring all the Dibbuns indoors. There's a mouse in his cloak in the orchard, and Redwall in the distance, and the misty autumn. Though his voice still squeaked a bit, Matimeo tried to make it sound deeper as he called out sternly, "All Dibbuns indoors, right away, please." There followed a chorus of infant giggles and a gruff mole babe's reply, "Us'n's bain't yours, sir." Matimeo could not help smiling to himself. He could recognize Bungo, the ringleader, anywhere. The Dibbuns are the young animals, and they're always getting into trouble. But the animals at Redwall Abbey are very tolerant with them, and they bring them up well. "I know it's you, Bungo. Come on out and bring those other villains with you right now," possibly a baby rabbit, a little mouse, a hedgehog, another rabbit, possibly a big fat vole and a hedgehog, and the little mouse has a little soft toy rabbit, and the wind is blowing the leaves. Wind drifted heaps of leaves, rustled and shook with merriment as Bungo called back to him. Oi, Dolly, Bungo be's gone, and all he little villains too. There be's only us leaves, yer. Matamayo turned away from the quivering leaf heaps and shrugged as he strode from the orchard. Well, I'm going inside. All you leaves can stay out here in the dark. That's the place for old dead leaves, out in the dark and cold for the night. A little hog-maid's voice answered, trembling with dismay. Some of us leaves want to go back inside of the Abbey. Matamayo laughed and shook his head. Oh no, I'd only have to sweep 'em back out again. Good night, little leaves. I'll think of you when I'm down in Cavern Hole at the autumn harvest home feast. Poor leaves out in the dark orchard, trying to hide from the big bad boogie beast. Matamayo was suddenly knocked flat by a stampede of Dibbuns, shrieking and shouting as they fled from the orchard. And there is Cavern Hole, under the great hall, where the animals have the feast. They've lit lanterns and put some autumn decorations. There are mice and voles, a hare, an otter, hedgehogs, squirrels, bunnies, moles, and rabbits. Down in Cavern Hole, the lanterns glowed warmly around a huge buffet table, which was piled high with magnificent food, as if by magic. Cavern suddenly filled with Abbey babes, their eyes still wide with fright. The father abbot chuckled as he sat down next to Cornflower. Isn't it nice to see our Dibbuns right on time? Young Matamayo has done a good job. There's not one of them missing. Lady Cornflower clapped a paw to her mouth, stifling laughter at the sight of her son, Matamayo. Matamayo looked slightly dazed as he was led in by Bungo, the mole babe, brushed off some leaves clinging to the young mouse's cloak. Bungo climbed up on Cornflower's lap and whispered solemnly to her, "I bringed your son home, Mum. He felled over any leaves." Cornflower stroked the tiny mole's velvety head. "That was a very kind thing to do, thank you, Bungo." The mole babe tugged his snout respectively. "My pleasure, Mum." The entire chamber fell silent as the abbot said grace. Slumber long, you autumn earth, covered by your leaves. Sleep on for the harvest that you'd gave. We thank you, every one. Every beast applauded, and Formal started the proceedings by plunging his ladle into a large, steaming cauldron. Cornflower smiled at the look of joy on Bungo's face. "Do you like deeper than ever turnip and tater and beetroot pie, Bungo?" The mole babe scrambled from her lap, doing a little dance of excitement. "Poor I, Mum. There bean't nothing like it, 'specially when he Formal be's the cooker. I wonder as how he makes it." Cornflower winked secretly at the mole babe. "Why don't you go and ask him?" A line of Redwallers had formed, all bowls and basins to be filled. Formal nodded affably to Bungo. "He come to help, boy. Lick ye, sir." There's the little sir. The little babe, the mole babe. All the moles have a certain accent in Redwall, as well as the sparrows, and of course the hares and the badgers. Bungo tugged his snout and climbed up beside the mole leader. He began passing Formal some bowls to fill. "Serpently, sir, I'll help ye, if any tells I how to be make any girt deeper in ever pie." Formal chuckled. "That be's a fair bargain, little un, but don't ye fall in yon pot, or I'll serve a be's oop to summer beast. Yoros, he makes it. Listen careful now." So this is our mole's favorite, deeper than ever, turnip and tater and beetroot pie. It has potatoes, carrots, turnips, salt and pepper, a little bit of cheese, and it says pickled beets. For this pie, I combined it with the bell ringers we ward, roast roots, and baked spuds, which is also turnips, parsnips, carrots. Now for the second course. I've made something not in the book. This is a tea drink, and it's drunk warm. It's made with orange juice, lemon juice, black tea, and I've used Earl Grey, brown sugar, and cognac, and I've garnished it with an orange peel. For the main, I've made mole's beetroot pie. I've modified it a bit and tried to use some of the ingredients that the creatures at Redwall would have had. So I've kind of combined those two recipes. I've put in chestnuts, beetroot, carrot, a little bit of ginger. I don't know if the creatures would have had ginger, but I think ginger tastes nice. Some shallots, mushrooms of the forest, buttons, chanterelle. I've also used some parsnip and celeriac, and I've topped it with breaded potato. Ambrose Spike had his best barrel of October ale on a trestle. He served Tim Churchmouse with a foaming beakerful. Drink hearty, Tim, nothing like a good old October ale to wet your whistle. 'Tis the best I've brewed in many a season. Tim took a long, slow sup. Ah, that's the stuff to keep my paws strong for tolling the Redwall bells. I suppose it's a secret how you make it, eh, Ambrose? The cellar hog hitched up his heavy apron. They're usually hedgehogs in Redwall's kitchens and cellars. You're a good and clever bell ringer, Tim, and a fair cook by my reckoning. Tell you what, I'll do your trade. See that tasty-looking dish you cooked, that'n on the table yonder. Tim eyed his creation proudly. Aye, that's my special bell ringer's reward, I call it. Would you like me to fetch you a plate of it? Ambrose nodded. I'd be pleased if you did. Then, if you tell me how you made it, I'll give you my October ale recipe. How does that sound to ye? Tim took Ambrose's sturdy paw. I'd call that a good offer. And there is Brian Jacques' recipe for October ale. It calls for grape juice and ginger beer. But I've just used ginger beer because it's perfect as it is. In fact, I think we should have some more. Constance Badgermum and Sister Pansy watched Tim and Ambrose go sit on the stairs where they ate and drank. There's Constance. And some mice and a mole and a baby mouse, the Dibbun. And the hedgehog and Tim Churchmouse, the cellar hog. They were whispering to one another between mouthfuls and swigs. Pansy chuckled. Look at those two exchanging secret recipes. Constance raised her eyebrows. I'm surprised that Ambrose Spike would tell any of his recipes to another beast. Pansy shrugged. Fair exchange is no robbery, they say. Shall we move closer and listen in on them? Constance looked shocked at the suggestion, but she could not hide the mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Yes, let's. Tim had finished imparting his recipe to Ambrose. The crafty cellar hog glimpsed Constance and Pansy hovering close, so he winked at Tim and raised his voice a touch. First I gets a barrel of muddy rainwater, then I soaks my apron in it for a day or two. Next I gets all the vegetable peelings from Friar Hugo, the old mouldy ones. Now you've got to stir 'em in with a few pawfuls of wild garlic. Constance and Pansy both pulled faces at each other and sidled off huffily. Ambrose waited until they were out of earshot. Oh, that'll teach 'em to earwig on my recipes. Right, Tim, mate. Listen now, these are the real instructions. And there it is. Combine the grape juice and sugar and ginger beer and serve chilled. What we're going to have with that is, of course, the Loamedge Legacy Nut Bread. Let's see how these recipes come about. Basil Staghare and his nephew Tom Scoff were demolishing a tray of crispy biscuits between them. Friar Hugo drifted over and sat by them. I see that you're both enjoying my autumn oat favourites. Tom Scoff nodded briefly, speaking as he continued eating. Jolly tasty, crunch. Just the stuff to keep the troops, Nunky Baz? Basil tweaked his cheeky nephew's ear. I'll feed you to the bloomin' troops if you call me that again, young pounder. But he's right, Friar. Your biscuits are eminently munchable, sir, even if I do say so myself. What? Hugo was not one to mince words. He came right to the point. And what, may I ask, did you contribute to our autumn harvest home feast this evening? Basil twitched his nose in the direction of Hugo's bowl. Oh, nothing really, just that stuff you appear to be scoffing. Enjoying it, are you, old lad? Hugo was taken aback. You made this delicious mixture of berries and nuts. Well, I am surprised. Tom Scoff left off stuffing himself for a moment. Don't know why, old chap. My Uncle Basil, sir, is a pretty good grub slinger. He used to make this when he was an officer cook with the 67th Paw and Mouth Long Patrol. Calls it Hare's Haversack Crumble. Hugo shook his head in amazement. Hare's Haversack Crumble. Basil looked dreamily as he recalled his old regimental days. Ah, yes, old chap. Used to call it that because it came to bits in the haversacks, us being on the march all day. We used to pinch it out of one another's haversacks. Don't you know, old Colonel Puffscott always said it tasted better like that. Hugo gave the hare a crafty wink. No chance I could pinch the recipe from you, is there? Basil gestured over towards Ambrose and Tim. I'll swap recipes with you, old scout. Seems to be the done thing at this feast, what? Hugo gnawed on his lip. He was not fond of giving away his friar's secrets. Basil grinned roguishly at him. You pinch my recipe, and I'll pinch yours. Honor among blinkin' pinchers. Shake. Hugo paused a moment, then stuck out his paws. Shake. That's why we have the recipes for autumn oat favorites. This one has butter, brown sugar, golden syrup, oats, flour, coconut, which I don't think many of the Redwallers would have had. Maybe the odd one from some traveling beast, and baking soda, and hare's haversack crumble, kind of like slices or possibly granola, frozen blueberries, blackberries, and sugar. And the topping, we have flour, butter, cinnamon, salt, brown sugar, chopped hazelnuts or pecans, and custard sauce. And I think the Redwallers like meadow cream. Rosie Spike, finding Matthias in a quiet corner, sat down by him, twiddling her spikes. Matthias smiled at her. Something I can do for you, Mom. Rosie sighed. Look at 'em all chattering away and swapping favorite recipes. No beasts asked to exchange recipes with me, though. Always gallant, Matthias patted his friend's paw. Well now, if you like my nut bread, loam hedge legacy, I call it, I'll trade recipes with you. Rosie agreed willingly. Oh, I love any sort of nut bread. Which one is yours? Matthias pointed over there by that big, marvelous pudding. It's nothing so grand, I fear, just a homely thing, but it's very tasty, and made to a real ancient recipe. Now what's your offering for our feast, Rosie? Pointed out. Rather shyly, the hedgehog nodded toward the grand pudding that Matthias had been admiring. That's it, my harvest berry sunset pud. Matthias was astounded. Great seasons, it's my lucky day. I'd give anything to be able to make a pudding like that. Rosie shook his paw heartily. And I'd love to know how to make your loam hedge legacy nut bread. Aren't we both lucky? I'll go first. So loam hedge is the name of an old abbey that sank into the ground after some seismic activity or probably an earthquake. And the founder of Redwall came into mossflower wood from loam hedge, so it is truly an ancient recipe, and here it calls for flour, baking powder, salt, cayenne pepper, butter, milk, and chopped pecans. But you know, I've put a lot more nuts in it and even some dates because it's yummy. And a harvest berry sunset pud, raspberries, blackberries, honey, and then bread, so a small loaf of bread with the crusts cut off and whipped cream for serving. So it's like a bread pudding with berries in the custard. The feast almost finished. Redwallers sat back contented, patting their stomachs and loosening belts. Durdlam, one of Friar Hugo's kitchen assistants, accompanied by little Bungo, began distributing small dock-leaf parcels from a trolley. Both he and Bungo were singing as they passed their delicacies out to one and all. Marms and sirs, moles and hers, do help yourselves to some. This seigneur was maked by us, 'tis very good, boy gum. Something munchy, crunchy, scrunchy, and them parcels be, some for all, and some for thee, and some for he and me. The Father Abbot opened his parcel and sampled its contents. Absolutely delicious. Who made this? What is it called? I'll keep the picture there. Durdlam tugged his snout respectfully. Me and Bungo make them, sir. They am called Dibbun's Delight. The abbot munched some more. Dibbun's Delight. You should call them Abbot's Delight. I must have the recipe. Baby Bungo shook his head solemnly. Nay, sir abbot, us'ns bain't giving his secret away. 'Tis far too valuable. Cornflower came to the abbot's assistance. What a shame that Bungo and Durdlam won't give us their Dibbun's Delight recipe. Still, I know how hard it is to part with a secret like that. We wouldn't part with our secret recipe for Golden Hill pears, would we, Father? shook his head. "Oh, dearie me, no." At the mention of Golden Hill pears, which was Bungo and Dirtlam's favourite dessert, both moles cried out, "We'll swappy recipe with thee." The abbot tapped his paws thoughtfully on the table for quite a long time before giving his answer. "Oh, well, all right, you pair of young rogues." Bungo grinned from ear to ear. "Thankee, sir, we be's only young rogues, but one day when us'ns growed up, we'll be all rogues like ye." Mattimeo winked at Bungo. "Better than being a leaf out of the orchard, eh, Bungo?" The little mole tucked into his last helping of Golden Hill pears left on the feasting table. "Or anything be's better'n that, sir. Hoy, aye, sir." And there are the recipes for Dibbun's Delight and Golden Hill pears. Dibbun's Delight is another crunchy dessert. Chopped mixed nuts, sugar, brown sugar, golden syrup, butter, and baking soda. You can probably put custard or ice cream on that. And Golden Hill pears, sugar, pears, and allspice, and of course some water as you stew the pears in the lovely sauce for dessert. There is our delicious pear, and I've sprinkled some cinnamon and allspice on it. So it's in the sugar syrup. That golden sugary syrup. I think some lemon juice in it makes a nice flavor. If you make this one, you could top it with mascarpone or even ice cream. So, my friend, it has been relaxing and delightful to have you here today for a Redwall autumn feast. I hope you're nice and relaxed. Study. Today we're going to have an afternoon tea according to the stories of Brian Jacques and his Redwall series. So I've brought some cute little apples. Just perfect size for the little creatures of Redwall. And a little bowl of nuts that I've picked up in the woods. Yes. Leave this there. If you're not familiar with Redwall, Brian Jacques' first book, it's about an abbey in Mossflower Woods run by woodland creatures. They're a very peaceful, studious bunch. And they support the library, and of course lots of stories and songs. But there's always some danger afoot, mysteries to solve, battles to be fought, adventures to be gone. The first book, Redwall, tells about the little mouse Matthias. He'd grown up in Redwall as a Dibbun, the little creatures they take care of. And there's always a very kind-hearted, even-tempered abbot, and creatures such as the hares of the Long Patrol, the badgers of Salamandastron, the sea otters, and of course the Abbey's founder, Martin the Warrior. I've got here a poster of some characters from the Redwall books. But first I thought I'd show you this book because it's one of my favorite. It's called Raggedy Tam. It's about a squirrel who fights with a squirrel claymore against Gulo the Savage. And there we can see Gula's ship. Oops, I've spilled the nuts. There's a good map, look at that, of Redwall's world. But not all of it, because the creatures go on great adventures and discover all kinds of things. There's Redwall Abbey, Salamandastron, the great mountain, Gulo's shipwreck, Asker's boat. So these are characters in this particular book. There's a river here, a waterfall, a fallen willow, walking stone buried here. There's Gulo's ship. And all of the interesting things that happen. There are all kinds of accents as well. And here's a story in form of a poem or a song. The books are full of them. A gallant young warrior lay weary on a battlefield far from his home. He tried to sit up and sound cheery, and these were the words he did moan. Oh, walla walla wimbo, bing bang bimbo, woolya 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 woo. What I wouldn't give for a pens full of me grandma's hard-baked stew. And yes, also for soup. And the last of not least, now the phobies are nearly upon me. I'm eating a raw onion pie. I'll remember me auntie quite fondly, but it's so jolly hard not to cry. Oh, walla walla wimbo, bing bang bimbo, woolya 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 ya. I've finished me scoff, so I'll be off. I'll be home by tea time, ma. Tea time sounds very nice, but before we make our tea, let's have a look at some of the creatures in Redwall. So this is a map with a little book, or a poster with a book, a little booklet with a quiz, and it talks about Redwall's friends, badgers, hares. Badgers have always felt the call of the fortress of Salamandastron, fulfilling a destiny which is carved on its stones. As rulers of the fortress, They are great warriors of immense strength, within whose souls dark and light battle for supremacy. The curse of the badger warrior is the fabled blood wrath, which is able to make a badger utterly disregard his own life in an attempt to destroy his enemy. That almost sounds like a badger. Hugely loyal, the rulers of Salamanderstone frequently come to the aid of the Redwallers. The wisdom inherent in badgers stands the females in good stead for their traditional role as guardian mothers of Redwall Abbey. They usually take care of all the Dibbuns, the little ones in the dormitory at the Abbey. Hares. Whether actors, travelers, or members of the Long Patrol, the Hares of Redwall are unforgettable characters, with their elaborate formality of speech and dress, their singing, constant chatter, and huge appetites. They are a much-loved part of Redwall lore. Hares are jolly and kind, but feared by their enemies. Hedgehogs are for the most part sensible and kind beasts. At Redwall they are usually the cellar keepers and proud of their fine concoctions, as well as the cellar hogs. There is also the young hedgehog maid at Tansy, whose wisdom and judgment ensure that she becomes the first hedgehog to be made abbess of Redwall. Here we have the moles. Homely and sensible, moles have played an important role at Redwall ever since the Abbey was first designed. It was moles who first dug the Abbey foundations, at which point the tradition of calling the chief Redwall mole Four-Mole began. The technical know-how of the moles and their ability to tunnel have come to the aid of Redwallers on many occasions. Moles are renowned for their logic and mole sense. It was moles who dug the tunnels and flooded Cotier, moles who solved the mechanism leading to Martin's tomb, moles who dug the underground tunnels which foiled General Ironbeak, and moles who worked out a way to move the Abbey's foundation stone. Moles are renowned for their logic and mole sense, but detest water and heights. They love good food, with their all-time favorite being deeper than ever turnip and tater beetroot pie. They are also fond of singing in their unique style, with a paw over one ear, although their companions do not always appreciate it. Otters are boisterous, brave, and really passionate about one thing: hot root soup. Although they do not usually inhabit the Abbey, they are frequent visitors and make up guard patrols in times of danger. The leader of the otters is always given the name Skipper. I think I like the otters. Otters are skilled warriors fighting with sling and stones, javelin or bow and arrow, and they're able to vanish into the water at a moment's notice. They are also excellent crafts beasts, making furniture, such as a desk for Abbess Germain. Although often seen as reckless, otters are hugely valiant creatures, many of them giving their lives in the name of freedom. Then there are the shrews, very funny creatures in Redwall. Although their argumentative natures can sometimes give the impression of chaotic discord, the Gosim guerrilla union of shrews in Mossflower strict code of rules and laws. The title of the Gosim leader, Logalog, is passed down through the generations and derives from the call for the fairy shrew to take other creatures across the river. Given their tendency to all speak at once, shrew law dictates that only the individual holding the black stone may speak at one time. The Gosim are fierce warriors fighting with their short rapiers and traveling the waterways in log boats. They are passionate about fighting for freedom and rarely take prisoners. Shrews are excellent cooks, particularly partial to a bit of meadow cream, and produce such specialities as shrew beer. Squirrels. The squirrels have always had an important role to play in Redwall history. From Rangivar, Foeseeker's great support of Luke in his battle against Vilu Daskar, they have fought bravely for Redwall and all that it stands for. Beyond Redwall, too, squirrels of great bravery have been associated with the Abbey. The great Rusanodri helps Tamo to join the long patrol. She also saves the life of the young Rusano the Wise. And of course this was written before Rackety Tam, so he would be mentioned here too. Squirrels played an important part in building of the Abbey. With their legendary climbing skills, they were the ideal creatures to put up the scaffolding during its construction. They are skilled and brave fighters who make full use of their detailed knowledge of the treetops for the purpose of attack or surveillance. Now here's a creature that you wouldn't expect would be a friend to all of these small little things. Birds, particularly owls. There have been a few owls that have helped out the Redwallers. Redwall has a great number of loyal feathered friends who are often crucial to the success of a Redwall mission and are ready to lend a wing. Of special significance to the Abbey is Warbeak, the Sparrow Queen, who helps Matthias to look for the sword of Martin the Warrior. She and Martin become great friends, and she risks her life to help the young mouse. Warbeak comes to the aid of the Redwallers, and again when she offers to seek out the traveling Matthias and deliver his vital map. And then we have a Redwall quiz. Here are some of the villainous vermin, the villains and the foe, the enemies of Redwall and the freedom of all woodland creatures. Mokken, the marl fox. Emperor Ublas. Damug Warfang. And Slagar the Cruel. These are a few of these villains. Here's some more. There's one great villain in each book. Let's go through them. Seem to be going from back to front, but that's because I want to do the heroes last. They're the most important. Badrang the Tyrant appears in Martin the Warrior. The battle-hardened stoat Badrang the Tyrant is vicious and ruthless, letting nothing get in the way of his ambition to become lord of all the eastern coast. He presides over the fortress Marshank in a reign of terror, but his false power, created by bullying and torture, utterly deserts him when he comes face to face with young Martin the Warrior in the final battle. So if you think stories about little forest creatures in woodland areas in an abbey are tame and saccharine loaded, you would be wrong reading Brian Jacques, because there's plenty of action, plenty of heartbreak as well, and it's it can get violent at times. There's lots of battles, but there's also lots of friendship, loyalty, and of course love. Sarmina, the wildcat, appears in Mossflower, the headstrong daughter of Lord Vedraga Green Eyes. But she shows little regard for family ties when she plots to have her father killed and then frames her brother for the crime. Vilu Daskar appears in the Legend of Luke, the pirate stoat Vilu Daskar, captain of the Gorleech, plunders and kills without conscience. With slaves forced to row his ship, Daskar roams the high seas in search of treasure, casually disposing of those who get in his way. Swart Sixclaw appears in The Outcast of Redwall, an evil ferret with a six-clawed paw. Swart Sixclaw takes great pleasure in causing torment and pain. When Sunflash, the young badger whom he has taken prisoner, permanently damages this trademark claw during his escape, Sixclaw vows to hunt him down and kill him slowly. This he attempts to do, leaving a trail of poison and death behind him. But when he reaches the mountain fortress of Salamandastron, Sixclaw proves that he is ultimately no match for Sunflash. A few more villains. Gabul the Wild, who appears in Mariel of Redwall. He's a sea rat with a very large cutlass. Urgan Nagru in The Bellmaker. He commands a horde of savage grey rats. Veraga the Assassin appears in Salamandastron, the name of the book. Salamandastron, an evil and pitiless weasel and an assassin. And Clooney the Scourge, who appears in Redwall. He's an evil rat, and he tries to take over Redwall because he likes it as a place to live for him and his minions. Let's look at Redwall's heroes. The brave and loyal creatures who fight so that others might live in peace and harmony in the woodlands and all around the world of Redwall. We'll start with Martin the Warrior, who appears in Martin the Warrior, Mossflower, and The Legend of Luke. Luke is Martin's father. Martin is the embodiment of Redwall's spirit. Throughout his lifetime, he fights for good against evil. Even after his death, he remains with the creatures of the Abbey in their dreams, guarding the present and looking out for the future. And then we have Luke the Warrior, who appears in The Legend of Luke. Martin's warrior father. There he is. Then we have Sunflash, the badger. Sunflash the mace. Mariel of Redwall. She's the Bellmaker's warrior's daughter, fiercely independent young mousemaid Mariel is a survivor and a warrior. Joseph the Bellmaker, visited in a dream by Martin the warrior, he's instructed to journey southward where Mariel and Dandin need his help. Earthstripe the Strong, very famous warrior badger, appeared in Salamanderstrawn, and of course Matthias, the hero of the very first book called Redwall that we saw earlier. Matimeo, Matthias' son. Grath Longfletch, who appears in the Pearls of Lutra, when her entire family is slain by the troops of Emperor Ublas for the sake of 6 pearls. Grath vows vengeance on the Pine Marten and will not rest until she has it. With the help of the Redwallers, whose abbot has been taken hostage by Ublas, Grath is able to achieve her goal. She eventually finds happiness with Inbar Trueflight and returns with him to live at Holt Rudderwake. Tammo, who appears in the Long Patrol. Tammo is desperate to join the famous Long Patrol like his parents before him, but his father claims he is too young and undisciplined. And eventually, of course, he becomes captain. Danor Raiguba appears in Marfox. Dan is a young squirrel, put under constant pressure by his father to live up to the honor of his family name. But when Marfox breaks into Redwall and steals the famed tapestry during Dan's watch, he gets labeled a coward. But eventually he fulfills his promise and is made champion of Redwall. Let's have a look at the poster. It's going to be very big, so I'm going to move the nuts. The acorns have lost their hats. So we'll have to look at it a bit at a time. But there's some very nice drawings of the creatures of Redwall. Clooney the Scourge, Badrang the Tyrant, Damok Warfang. I'm sure you recognize these from what we've just looked at. And in the center, Martin the Warrior, with his armor, and Matthias, Luke, Sunflash, Matimeo, Grath Longfletch, and our squirrel Dan, Earthstripe and Tammo and Mariel, and Joseph the Bellmaker. And here are some more villains. Slagar the Cruel, and Emperor Ublas, and Swart Sixclaw. Alright, let's have some afternoon tea with our Redwall cookbook. This is a fun little book that goes by the seasons. cellars there in the kitchen. As ahead of the long patrol, gourmet garrison grilled leeks. Stuffed springtide mushrooms. And there is an otter keeping the Dibbuns away from the kitchens. The Redwallers, Dibbuns, love to have strawberry cordial. There's some more Dibbuns. They like to sit in the kitchens because that's where all the food is. And this looks like Matthias there with Martin's sword. And the mice in the kitchen. Hot mint tea. The cook. And the rabbit in the long patrol. And summer. I think we'll do summer since summer is almost upon us. Here you can see the Abbey pond and the boathouse there. And there's a hair of the long patrol and some flowers and a bee and some mice enjoying the shade of the willow tree. And here we have one of Brian Jacques' poems. Rise, O lark, soar up on high, sing your praises to the sky. Come, you little humble bee, kiss each blushing rose for me. Fruits upon the orchard bough, ripe and sweet for summer now. Summer steals in through my dreams, voyaging through dawning, like a leaf down shaded streams to the golden-clad morning. Hearken to each wondrous day where the sun is king, keeping warm dark night at bay, late into soft evening. Yonder come the hazy days, basking in the warm sun rays. Gently down the path 'twill soon shimmer in the distant noon. All the earth, and we as well, are under summer's magic spell. There we have the orchard and the creatures having the afternoon tea in the orchard. What shall we make? We'll invite all of the woodland creatures. Cherry crisp, jolly raspberry jelly rock cakes. I think definitely afternoon tea scones with strawberry jam and cream. And squirrel mums, blackberry and apple cake. That sounds perfect. Let's have tea. So the first thing for our Redwall tea is, of course, Dibbun's favorite strawberry fizz. Besides Mr. Dog's claws on the floor, you can hear the fizz. Sorry about the claws. So that's the fizz. So what I put are some strawberry bits, and I've made some strawberry cordial. And you can see the bits of strawberry floating in there. So that's our yummy strawberry fizz. Put that just there so you can just see the strawberries. Now, so I've used the Redwall recipe and made nice little creature-sized or badger-sized scones. So we're going to use some strawberry jam. And, of course, some special Cornish clotted cream. Now, if you can see this special clotted cream, it takes at least 24 hours to make, and it's got a nice crust on top, and it's from Cornwall. I love Cornwall, it's one of my favourite surfing spots. So there's a crust that forms on the cream as you make it. Also for tea we have, which you might not be able to see, let's say, a few fresh blackberries. And I've made Squirrel Mum's apple blackberry cake. So that's why I don't do cooking videos. But it's delicious. So we're taking the lid off our strawberry jam. Let's put some cream. See that? So yummy. Onto a scone. Now there's a huge debate about whether to put the cream on the scone first or the jam. To be honest, and in all propriety, the consensus is it really doesn't matter. It's up to your personal preference. I like to add the cream first because I love the cream, because it's so sweet and delicious. And then I'll just top with a little bit of jam. But people who like more jam might want to put the jam first. So there is our delicious Redwall strawberry and cream scone. We've got some little apples and blackberries. Don't forget our strawberry cordial, a favorite of the Dibbuns. Now let's cut our cake. You can hear Mr. Dog. He can't stay away when I make food videos. Alright. Crumbly. That's our apple and blackberry yummy cake. And I've put little sugar on top of it. That will be nice and gluggy for afternoon tea. So do enjoy your afternoon tea wherever you are. And I hope you've enjoyed coming to Redwall with me in the study. Another little adventurous journey. to yourself, be kind to others and to the animals, and be extraordinary.